Hi, my name is Jody Noor. I chose Albert Bandura to do my PowerPoint on. I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I see. Albert Bandura, Social Learning Theory. We're going to talk about his history, the background of social learning theory, concepts of social learning theory, the uses and impacts of social learning theory. So he was born in December of 1925 and in Alberta, Canada. He was the youngest of 6 kids. He went to a small high school that had only 20 students with 2 teachers. After finishing high school, he went to get his bachelor's degree from the University of British Columbia. From there, he came to the United States to the University of Iowa to get his master's degree and his doctorate. After finishing that doctorate, he started a clinical internship, but was only there a year before he started at Stanford, and he's still at Stanford. He's been there since 1953. During his undergrad degree, Bandura began experimenting with imagery, reciprocal determinism, and representation. And I just want to put a side note here. Reciprocal determination is described as a person's behavior both influences and is influenced by personal factors and the social environment. His focus at the time was on human motivation, action, and thought. He spent some time with one of his grad students, Richard Walters, and explored social aggression. That study of aggression led to his research on observational learning. And one of his most famous experiments is this Bobo doll experiment. For this experiment, Bandura showed a video to children in which an adult beat up a doll, called it names, kicked it, etc. He divided those children into 3 different groups, and each group watched a video with a different ending. One video showed an adult being rewarded for the behavior, another video showed the adult being punished for the behavior, and a third showed no consequences to the behavior. He studied a couple of different things about it. He studied the difference between boys and girls in aggression. So whether or not they imitated the behavior, and in all 3 cases, the males imitated the behavior more. But he also studied just the kids in general who watched the video where the person was rewarded for the behavior. Those imitated the behavior more than any other group, which proved his theory. And for those of you who don't know, a Bobo doll is an egg-shaped balloon creature with a weighted bottom that makes it pop back up or bob back up after you hit it, so it goes down and then bounces back up to you. And his theory is deductive in development. It's deducted from behaviorism, which focuses on variables that we can observe, measure, and manipulate. And behaviorism says that environment causes behavior. Bandura said, yes, environment does cause behavior, but behavior also causes environment, which he called reciprocal determination. He later added psychological processes or personality into the interaction. So really, he's both a behaviorist and a cognitivist. Bandura accepts behaviorism, uses some concepts of stimulus response and reinforcements. He understands that social learning is interrelated with behaviorism, and that while learning through observing the behavior of others, what is really important is that we learn from the consequences of those behaviors on others. So here is the breakdown of his theory. Behavior, environmental factors, personal factors like cognitive, affective, biological events, all interact with each other, all 3. It can go both ways. So social learning theory. The emphasis emphasizes the importance of observing and or modeling behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reactions of others. It explains human behavior in terms of continual reciprocal interaction. So that's where that cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences comes in. Continual reciprocal interaction. They all affect each other. And then he brought up that there was some processes to this observational learning that he used for that video, the Bobo doll experiment. And those processes are attention, retention, motor reproduction or motor response, and motivation. His focus in social learning theory is on motivational factors and self-regulatory mechanisms that contribute to a person's behavior rather than just the environment. We're going to break down those processes of observational learning next, and we're going to start with attention. So attention has a couple of different factors that that play into it. So a model that is knowledgeable and well respected and who can communicate effectively will make the observers more likely to adopt the behaviors that they're modeling. But the behavior itself matters too. If the witness behavior violates the observer's principles or is socially unacceptable to the observer, they more than likely won't adapt the behavior. Retention is the ability to remember. So we have to give the student a chance to do this through feedback. We have to allow the student to code the activity into words, labels, or imagery that can help them retain the information and let them model the behavior more effectively. So things like concept maps or even note cards, anything to kind of put it down in a concrete sort of form. Reproduction or motor response, enacting the behavior and evaluating it. This is where the student enacts the behavior and evaluates it in terms of accuracy, and it can reveal vicarious learning. So the student may have watched somebody do a respiratory assessment and has never done one, but they watched somebody do one and they came to post-conference and you asked them to demonstrate what they saw. Well, she may not even know that she can do it, but she learned vicariously by watching, and now she can come to post-conference and teach it. In this step, also praise is important. It's not only reinforcing the skill, but it can be used like in a reward. If the end result for the student is positive, it can result in the response being repeated. So if they are praised, they may want to be praised more. It can also allow that experience to become more meaningful and help them remember for next time. So different kinds of motivation, kind of broke it down for you, positive versus negative. Motivation helps them it helps us and them discover whether or not the experience was valuable. So what they saw today, does it motivate them? Motivation leads to the student becoming self-motivated and engaging in self-directive learning. So positive motivation, there's past reinforcement, which are things that have happened in the past that they have done, that they've gotten praised for. Promise reinforcement, incentives. Just an example, maybe an allowance for your children. Vicarious reinforcement is seeing and recalling. So maybe one of the other nursing students did something really well, and they remember them doing it from a week ago, and now they want to do it. Vicarious reinforcement. Negative motivation can be a past punishment. Maybe they got in trouble for something, they don't want to do it again. A promise punishment or a threat. And vicarious punishment, maybe they saw another one get in trouble for something, and so now they don't want to do that. So that's how we break down motivation. We have some principles of social learning theory also. The principles, the main three: acting out model behavior or coding it into words or images leads to better retention than just observing. The observer is more likely to adopt a model behavior if it results in outcomes that they value. And the observer is more likely to adopt behavior that has functional value if the model is similar to the observer and is admired and respected. So the impact of social learning theory. In nursing research, it's used in many, many studies. Our text says that it's one of the most significant models for nursing research related to adolescent health promotion. And for nursing practice, the theory states that self-efficacy promotes learning, and it's been used to develop many nursing interventions. So modeling is very effective in education. It's used in all sorts of clinical situations. And I have an example, professional socialization models in nursing. So with this, this article, professional socialization in nursing is absorbing the culture of nursing, the rights, the rituals, the value behaviors of the profession. The goal is obviously the development of professionals. This article focuses on ways to meet that goal. It discusses formal versus informal or incidental learning, with formal being like lesson plans and informal being incidental learning, like observing something that wasn't planned. The article discusses Bandura's model as falling somewhere between those two, because it involves a conscious decision on the learner's part to model themselves after someone. Modeling methods have also proved effective in numerous behavioral disorders, like in the treatment of phobias. Studies have shown large decreases in the level of fear achieved using Bandura's theory and desensitization techniques. So just an example would be to take a fearful subject and they should be given repeated modeling exposure using multiple models and increasing demands on the subject, with the modeling being supplemented with practice and regular reinforcement. Using that model has reduced their fear greatly. Also, again, in many nursing research studies, when I typed in Bandura in CINAHL, 287 results popped up, just his last name. And they were studying everything from parental efficacy in nursing practice to self-management in chronic kidney disease. So another example there, factors contributing to registered nurse medication administration errors. It's a literature review, and it focuses on studies regarding medication errors in nursing, and it's based on Bandura's social learning theory. This review found that a number of different environmental and personal factors were identified as contributing to medication errors, but they found a notable lack of emphasis on nurse behavior as a factor. If they hadn't used Bandura's theory to look at all of these studies, they would never have found this as a focus. And using this, maybe they can do future studies to focus on this and try to come up with a way to decrease those medication errors. I have given some examples throughout this PowerPoint of how this theory is used to promote safe quality care practices. So just know that Bandura's theory can be used in many clinical learning situations, as it's both patient and student-centered. And using Bandura's teaching model with students can enhance the acquisition of knowledge and skill and facilitate the adoption of behavior. And that's through healthcare, throughout healthcare, with nursing students, with psych students, with any kind of student, this model lends itself well. Thank you for taking the time to listen about Albert Bandura. Those are my references. Thank you. Have a good night.